Hey there, Wargamers, Justin Daff here, and we're back for part 2-3 of the Star League, the Starfleet log. We're doing another TNT podcast with Daff here, and in our first segment / two segments, we talked a lot about nerd stuff, but didn't really get into any kind of wargaming stuff. We kind of segued into life stuff and then big tangent about movies and learning about people and just kind of rambling. So in today's episode, we wanted to kind of pick up on the areas that we left off on, specifically like how Daff and I met, probably some of the law enforcement stuff, because that's what he was doing at the time. You guys kind of gathered in the previous episode, if you watched them, that he was in the Marines, got out of the Marines, and became a police officer. He's an SRO officer, but there's a little bit of a gap there in what he was doing before that happened. And recently has gotten into wargaming because I've indoctrinated him into Battletech, and he still does magic and so forth. So there's some topics to talk about that are a little bit more relevant to what the channel is about, but I wanted these podcasts to be kind of free form where we can just talk about whatever we want, whenever we want. So those segues I think are good, but in this one we will probably bring it full circle and talk a bit more about stuff that leads into some mini stuff. So that said, do you want to talk about like how we actually met?
Yeah, so...
Like what you were doing?
So... I was, at the time, I was doing D&D with, I had like a steady D&D group going.
Yep.
Where we were meeting every week, and so I was like, I was the DM for the group, and I was like really wanting to, I had my own story that I was doing that I had started making up, like, you know, I was really into watching Critical Role.
Yep.
At the time. In the first campaign, I had picked up around, I think it was like episode 30 something of the first campaign is where I started picking that up at, and so I was like, I had some friends that wanted to play D&D with me, so I was DMing games for that, and I would go into like prepping, like I would go get poster board from the store, like because at the time I didn't have a child yet, so like I was just doing that. Yeah. So it was just me and my wife, and she'd be like, "Oh, you nerd," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're a nerd." First thing we ever did on one of our dates was watch a Star Wars movie. You sat down and watched Star Wars movies, and it was your suggestion. Like, what are you talking about?
My first date with Jessica, I took her to watch. Was it Beyond the Spider-Verse? Whichever one is like Miles Morales when he fights Spider-Man 2099.
Oh yeah, the second one, Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, Into Spider-Verse. We watched that, and it was like our first date. I brought toys to a bar. So I had painted minis. I brought a painted D&D mini that I ended up giving her. She still has it. The elf guards her shelf in her bedroom. And then our first like date after we met, because that was like when we first met. Then our first like date, I took her to the movies, and we watched a cartoon. And I was like, if you can get past the fact that I paint and like toys, basically, and you like nerd films and cartoons, we're going to get along fine. And that was very funny.
And y'all had kind of like known each other before.
Oh, yeah. We went to school together. But we weren't like, we had similar circles, but we didn't necessarily know each other. But we knew who each other were.
I'll give you a story about me and Amanda because it's funny. Like, we were not in the same friend group whatsoever. But anyway, how me and you met versus how me and my wife met. We'll go into that one later. So I was doing D&D stuff. I was doing a campaign. I had one, like, had friends come over to the house, and we would come, I think it was like weekly or every other week if we had something going on. And there was like 5 or 6 of us that were playing. Yeah. And it would just be like we would try to do it on it was every other week because I was working on Road Patrol, so I would have every other Wednesday off, or every other weekend off.
You work 12-hour shifts?
Yep. So we were doing is the Panama, what they call Panama schedule. Yep. So I was doing that on the weekends, and then on Wednesdays I was driving to a store in Columbia, South Carolina called Firefly for the weekly D&D groups that they were doing. Like they would have Adventures League, D&D Adventures League. I was going up there doing that, and I noticed that like people were doing their own minis, and this is when Hero Forge had first started their little thing about being able to print you like a custom mini for what you wanted. Like, and then fast forward I was doing that for a couple of years, like just buying. I was getting minis. Like I would use an overtime paycheck and go buy some of the random because I am a pack addict. That's my drug of choice is opening packs. Yep. So when they had a way of doing that with miniatures, I was like, ooh, because the minute I like getting inspiration from the stuff that I find in random stuff, so and random things like that. So when I buy a mystery pack of minis, I'm like, okay, how can I'm going to find a way to incorporate this into my campaign. Yeah. Which is why, like when we did the the salvage thing with Bob
Yep.
for that. Like I thoroughly enjoyed
Yep.
that because it added a little bit of randomness and mystery to something that is already planned out.
Yep.
I would go through and write out full stories of campaigns and like plot points that I wanted to happen for the stuff that I was doing for my characters. And the people that I was playing with, they loved it. But I had found Matt Mercer had done I was looking for what he used as the model for the big bad guy. Spoiler alert for Critical Role Season 1, Vecna is the big bad guy and they have to fight him. If anybody knows what that means. So I was looking for what he used as the model on there, and then kind of find out it was a model for Nagash from the Warhammer Age of Sigmar set. Nagash being like one of the Lords of the Undead armies and stuff like that. He's a big skeleton guy, but they had kit bashed and converted that model a little bit to fit it, one of those versions of the model to fit it to what he needed for Vecna.
Yeah.
And had somebody commissioned to paint it and all that. And that's when I started learning that painting. I started looking at Warhammer fantasy miniatures for Age of Sigmar. And I like dwarves. I had a couple of my friends that had dwarf characters, so I went and bought a box of the Warhammer Underworld's Fire Slayers.
Yep.
I bought that, and I had held on to it for a while because I didn't know like how to like build or paint, and it was an easy build put together one.
Yeah, snap fit. Yeah.
Snap fit.
Yep.
And I bought that, held on to it for a while, and then I went to one of my goals that I wanted to do in law enforcement was be a canine officer. I wanted to do that when I was in the Marine Corps as an MP, but I got told because I wasn't re-enlisting that I wasn't going to be able to go be a canine handler because they weren't going to waste the money for me to do that and then not re-enlist and then have to retrain a dog and do all that other stuff. So I made it a goal of mine when I got into civilian law enforcement to be a canine handler at one point. The department that I worked at, we only had one canine at the time, and it was a hard thing to get into when one of our sergeants that was there, he was a canine handler for a while, and he was real big into the canine stuff. He started doing civilian contracting to go overseas to be a canine handler.
Yep.
So he pushed for the department to get a second one. So what we ended up doing was working out to get a second canine handler position available and have one on one rotation and one on the other rotation. So like if I was working on that like the days that I was working, I was also on call for anything that may have been happening with a canine being needed.
Yeah.
So doing that, like, and I really loved doing that. So when we bought our department bought the other canine, we got it approved for the budget, bought the other canine. Of course, I had to go to a canine handler's course to learn how to do it. It was a 4-week-long course in up here in North Carolina, actually. Tar Heel Canine. They are in close to Raleigh, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume Raleigh or Charlotte, somewhere there.
I think it's Raleigh.
Big cities.
Anyway, so we went there, and I had to stay there during the week, bring the dog home on the weekends. And this dog he was separate from my other 2 dogs that I had at the house. Like obviously he's a tool for the department. The dog is owned by the department. It's a tool for the department. They pay for the training and everything. They pay for the dog. Drago was an awesome dog. My dog's name was Drago. It was cool because me and him had the same, like they tell you what the birthday is of the dog, so that way we had the same birthday. And Drago's still working to this day. I don't have him anymore because I left that department for personal reasons. And the female officer that got him was a female officer that was on my shift. So when I started applying elsewhere, she ended up doing some training and stuff with me, and she works really good. She's an awesome female officer. So I was at canine school. I was at handler school. I had to stay up there during the week, and we were staying in a trailer where some of the people who were doing their trainer's course, not training to be canine handlers, like they would bring their own personal dogs, and they had a course that they would do where they would teach you how to train canines.
Yeah.
Not just the handlers. They would teach you how to train canines so you can operate your own business on like personal dogs, for whether it be obedience training or personal protection training or whatever. So I'm staying in a trailer with these guys and guys and a girl at one point that were learning this, and I'd basically go in there with my dog, who's a police canine. He was trained for. He was a dual purpose canine, which means that he did tracking and apprehension and narcotics.
Yeah.
Dual purpose just means tracking and or narcotics and the tracking and apprehension.
Yeah.
Tracking and apprehension go together versus the narcotics, or you can do it with explosives. So Drago was an all black German Shepherd. Sat in there in the room with him, and I take him outside, let him run, do some stuff with him, do some obedience training with him a lot. But then I'd get bored because I'm not at home during the week, and I'm just like, okay, cool. So one week I brought those miniatures up there with me and started scrolling Twitch, and I found your stream when you were streaming on Twitch, and I was like, oh, this guy seems pretty cool. Like he just looks like a dude. So I started watching the stream, and I was like, he's really good at painting. And I just started chatting. I became active in the Twitch stream. Became very active in the Twitch stream. Got to know some of the people like Wheels and Java in there.
Yep. So previous episodes we talked about handles. That's Wheels, which is my buddy Chris Oakes, and then Java, which is Calvin.
Yep.
When it comes to hobby tools and paints, Monument Hobbies has the best in the business. Their Pro Acrylic paint line offers unmatched coverage and vibrant colors, perfect for all of your miniature projects. And with high quality tools to match, you'll always be ready to create. Save 5% on your order with the coupon code ARMEDPAINTER. Elevate your hobby game with Monument Hobbies.
Talked to Teals was in there every now and then.
Yep. He's still a Twitch streamer, artist. His name's Eric. Very cool.
Yeah. Clan Wolf was in there.
Yep.
Who were some of the other people? Bob was in there.
Yep, Bob was in there. Yep. Some of the Kid Kringlers used to be in there, so Nathan was in there. Tim would pop in from time to time. Kalini was in there quite a bit.
Kalini was crazy, man.
Yeah, he won a Warhound Titan that I painted. Yeah. So those are good times and bad times, but good times.
I needed to, I would support like you with what I could, because I wouldn't make, like, police officers don't make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
So I was trying to support you because I was like, man, I'm learning a lot from this guy.
Yeah.
Like you were teaching me a lot about painting, and I'm not a good painter at all, but I think I do good enough that people look at me and they want to say, hey, can you paint this for me? Like Ben just asked me to paint a Necron because he has the Necron Warhammer deck. Yeah. So one of the guys that is the commander of that deck, he wanted me to paint the actual model for it. Yeah. So I painted that. I did a really cool thing with it. I do a little bit of woodworking because I get bored and want to learn new hobbies. So I took a little piece of extra piece of walnut that I had and made like a little
a plinth.
It wasn't.
It was not a plinth? Not
a plinth, but like, I guess you would call it like a plaque for it to sit on.
Okay.
Or a little stand. I literally just rounded over the edge and gave it like a little raised spot in the center. But instead of using the regular base that it came with, I added a piece from a Rhino tank.
Yep, Rhino. Yep.
The Rhino tank front part from one of the ones that one of my buddies that I used to work with at one of the firefighters, he gave me like a bunch of Warhammer minis. So that your stream got me interested in Warhammer, because at the time you were painting Warhammer for yourself, and then a couple other commissions and stuff. Because I think I joined and really got into it about the time that you were painting Fulgrim.
Okay. So, fun fact for YouTube land, I painted a bunch of stuff on Twitch, and I painted a couple of Primarchs, and Fulgrim was one that I painted and gave away on stream.
Yeah.
So, pretty sure that was a giveaway.
I dumped a bit of money into trying to win that.
Yeah. And that, and then the Mortarion, which the Mortarion one's slightly upsetting because I painted the Demon Primarch Mortarion big.
You don't have to open old wounds of the Mortarion fiasco.
Oh, no, I will. And Lothar, his name's Simon Lothar Bird, was a viewer from Australia, and I'm pretty sure he's got some of my painted minis, but he was also a viewer. And everyone that was dedicated to being in the channel all the time was trying to win this Mortarion. And you threw in your points, did whatever, and you try and win. Well, one of the guys won, and then I shipped it, and within however long it took to ship, I saw a picture one day scrolling on Facebook, and I was like, yo, man, that Mortarion looks pretty good. And then I zoom in, and I was like, oh, that's the Mortarion I painted. I was like, oh, this dude's trying to sell it. Oh, he only wants MSRP for the thing, which is the value of the box. And then to blow a stab, he had won a thing and wanted to sell the thing for money, which was frustrating because I painted it, and that's my time that I've given to someone. Now, granted, you win it, you do what you want with it, but still as an artist, it's frustrating. So he's trying to sell it. And Lothar told me, he's like, well, if you buy it, I'll reimburse you. Just ship it to me. And I couldn't get to the guy quick enough, someone bought it. And then the real dagger twist was one of the comments was trying to haggle on the price because they wanted to strip the model. And then I normally don't respond to certain people on Facebook and social media, but I responded with a clown emoji because, you're a clown for that comment, dude. You're gonna buy this fully painted, nicely painted model.
It was really
strip
good.
it? Yeah, get out of here, dude. But I did that kind of stuff. I've given away a bunch of stuff. I did some Eldar Titan. I did a Warhound Titan. I gave away some Primarchs, and then single characters. I did a bunch of Necron characters.
Chaplain and Terminator armor with the when DRD did the base toppers that y'all were doing, but it was like futuristic Norse themed.
Oh, yeah,
I wanted that thing so
forgot I
freaking
did that
bad,
one.
dude.
I did so many characters. I gave so much stuff away on Twitch. So I was streaming at least 20 hours a week on Twitch. I was buying and building models and giving them away. I was trying to film things for YouTube. And I got to a point on Twitch where it became very obvious the channels that were being promoted weren't always based on skill. That's where I'll leave that one. Or even longevity for how long you've been doing it. And I quickly saw that like the finances versus time investment ratio versus other people who were getting more attention and sponsorships who had been doing it for half as long but had different things that made them more appealing. And I just like...
And honestly, a lot of their painting I don't think was the same quality. Now,
Yeah.
At the time, they may have improved and gotten way better over time because they've been doing it longer and practicing more. But at the time, it was not the same.
Yep.
And there are different a myriad of reasons as to why eyeballs were watching their screens or their streams more. Like what I thoroughly enjoyed and what drew me to being able to like do that was like you were just a regular dude that was talking. Like some people don't like that. Sometimes you got to be a character on Twitch.
Yeah, which I didn't put on the persona. So a lot of my Twitch was sometimes people want a hobby with like a hobby buddy. You know, you do it at the same time. So my Twitch platform was designed to connect you with other people doing similar stuff so we're all hobbying together and connecting. So like basically I would say like I'm broadcasting a light into the universe, the darkness, to provide you with some like happiness and some enjoyment and a comfortable place to enjoy this hobby together. I'm aware that my presentation as like the persona as Daff was mentioning is not the same. I'm not a mini Wargaming Dave who like just his personality alone is going to carry a lot of weight. But in terms of like the painting side, I feel like I was providing like a service and it just wasn't commensurate with the time that was put in, what was coming in monetarily. And even so far as to say with at Warhammer 40K, I did some painting tutorials on YouTube, and I've got one for Mephiston that I spent a lot of time on, and it turned out really, really good in my opinion.
That's a good model.
And the views on that on YouTube were just absolute crap. And that was towards the end of my Twitch days where like I started to stop doing tutorials because I was not able to compete with other people who had various backings or different things that helped them become more popular. And then that brings in a lot of the mental health aspect for me from Twitch. So I remember the day that I left, I had just finished a bust, and then as soon as I finished it and did the last touch, I was like, all right, guys, well, that's the last stream, and no one knew that I was quitting. But when you start to equate your success with views, and that also starts to connect with your value, your self-worth, it can be very depressing when you're like, I'm putting in all this effort, these things aren't commensurate, I'm not good enough, blah, 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 and that starts to spiral, and then your value is attached to a number that's on there. And it got to the point where I was like, I am depressed every day because I spend 20 hours a week. I literally was streaming basically during the week before work, and then I'd go to work, go home and sleep, get up, go back to live streaming, doing commissions and whatnot. And then you feel like you're in this cycle where it doesn't end and you're not good enough for what you're doing. And it's bad. So if you see content creators talk about getting depressed or sad or whatever from, doing stuff.
They're people too, man.
Yeah, your self-worth starts being attached to views, subscribers, and all that. And if those aren't going the direction you think they need to be going, even if you don't want it to, it weighs on you. And that's what happened with Twitch. YouTube's not as bad for me, but Twitch was really bad because it was very, I am live active. It's very personal. And then that was it. Yeah.
But at that time, it also caused you to, you were putting your own self-worth into what was going into a live viewership number. And then when I first joined your stream, you were having 150, 200 people watching you at a time. And I was like, oh, he's got to be decent. Mini painting is a very niche thing.
Especially on Twitch, very niche. It was a niche within a niche,
Yeah. So having that many people watching, I was like, he's got to be good for something.
Yeah.
And it was very fun. You were still engaging with people.
Yeah.
There were the little giveaways you would give away, and it wasn't always like material stuff. You were giving away points. You were giving away points to enter for drawings later on at the end of the month. It was all the stuff that they tell you to do as a streamer at the time. And I think, like, my personal opinion, it went into time frame for what you were doing. What you would, if you had been doing all that same stuff during late 2019, 2020, and that I think you would have been picked up on the algorithms a little bit different. That's just personal opinion, because that was when there was a lot more eyeballs onto Twitch anyway, because people were stuck at home for the pandemic.
I was streaming then, but I had not started, or was still doing it. Or excuse me, I had. It wasn't at the beginning. It was like towards the end, because I quit. We were definitely out. It was during COVID. It was either 2020 or 2021. That was my last stream. I think it was 2021 that I finally ended, because I remember I was painting Nemo. It might have been 2021, one of them, because Adepticon got canceled. I feel like it might have been the second one, because I was finishing my Nemo bust for Privateer Press's painting competition at Adepticon, and I had finished it, and then it got canceled, and I didn't get to go. So it was one of those. So it was either 2020 or 2021. I think it was 21.
It was 2020. You mean tell you how I know it was 2020? Because I had started at my new department in 2020 through the summer, and that was that was one reason why I was not around as much in the group, because you had the Facebook group. The Facebook group was good for the longest time.
The Discord was pretty popular at the time.
Yeah, the Discord was going good, and I was enjoying being very active in that, because that was when I would meet, that's how I met and talk to Java and them and a couple other people just through doing that stuff, and it got to know you on a little bit more personal thing, and it got to where you were I'm gonna sound really mean when I say this to you. You were down on yourself, and it kind of aggravated me, because I was like, there's no need for you to be down on yourself. You're not bad at painting. You're not and no matter what I did I was trying to be a friend to you, because I genuinely care about people. Even I didn't want this dude on the internet who had got me interested and got me better at a hobby to feel like he's failing at something. And now I've gotten somewhat of a friendship. It wasn't I feel like I'm what the term that the students at the school use is glazing you, and I am not doing that. Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Basically, I think we'll be far enough into the podcast. Basically, stroking your ego, for a lack of better terms.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, man, you gonna keep, S-ing this dude's D for a while?
Got it.
I don't mean to be sounding like I'm doing that, but and it wasn't just you in the group. I enjoyed the group. I enjoyed and I was like, hey, he's not that far away. He's in North Carolina. If you'd ever be open to hanging out or whatever, or I didn't have a kid at the time. Again. Well, no, in 2020 I did, because Tristan was born in 2019. So, and it kind of got on my nerves, because I'm like, this dude is he's just being a downer on himself. But at the same time, when you quit and you were getting away, I said, okay, I had to get my own stuff together. That's why I started. It wasn't because I was aggravated. I was like, I can't focus on that and
you got your own stuff to do.
Still have the stuff going on that I need to with starting a new job, or starting at a new department, getting all this straight, trying to find a house for us to live in. But I try to make it a point to even still, I would hit you up on a message on Facebook, hey man, I ain't heard from you in weeks, a month. Are you doing okay?
Well, after knowing me for a while too, so you'll start to notice people that have cycles, especially if it's a depression thing. But you'll see how people relate to stuff. So I broke down D&D so we can circle back to that, and this kind of gets into it. So Daff and I were in a Star Wars group, and I was the DM. And you have known me from Twitch. You've seen how I respond to things, and when stuff starts to weigh on me, how I respond. And then you saw how the rise and fall of our Star Wars RPG group, and then you immediately knew no, there's other shit going on that's fucking weighing on him right now. And then when you got the whole story, you knew okay. It ain't just us. This was just extra shit on top of the sandwich. He's going through some shit.
And Java had told you when Java talked to you, it was the D&D thing, or not the D&D, the Star Wars group that we were doing. that was a thing that you could eliminate to eliminate some of the stress.
Yeah.
And it sucked for us because, like, genuinely, everybody that was playing was having a good time.
Yeah.
Like, people, I still want to finish that campaign. But
Java knows how it ends. I already told him. I can tell you on the ride home. Because I didn't know if I told you. I tell you what was going to happen. And your character and all that stuff. I told him, he's like, holy shit. And I was like, yeah.
I'm gonna chap your nerves about this. Because I tried to push you into DMing stuff for a while because you kept talking about wanting to play stuff, right?
I wanted to. I spent the first half of last year watching an hour every day how to be a good GM, how to take cues from Matt Mercer and then the guy from College Humor. Forget his name, but comedian like guy, whatever.
Yeah.
Both of them, they're really, really good. And I was trying to, like, if I'm going to do this, I want to be able to, like...
You have to understand that your end goals that you want as a story aren't always what you believe is going to happen.
Yeah, which it's fun to see where things go and try and mold things together. And then sometimes when you're trying to connect those things, it works and sometimes it doesn't. But the big deals I was trying to get from them were like, how can you make make an environment that's interesting for your players? And what are things you can do? So that was like the no but, or yes but, or yes and, no and, whatever. So like if you say no to a thing, like have something else. So like as a GM, you're not just like the end all be all authority. It's the negotiation of a story between your players. So sometimes we're playing, we'd be like, well, no, I don't think that's exactly how that interaction should go because it seems too overpowered. But I think this will work good. What do you think? And they're like, okay, yeah. I'm like, cool. Well, that's where the story's going. So like a little bit of interactive storytelling because I'm not trying to tell your story for you, but if you roll like a crit and you're like, well, what does that mean? I'm Thor, I win. No, you can't just be like God mode win. But maybe this happens, and if you're like, yeah, that sounds cool. Or like people who in the session couldn't quite figure out what they wanted some of the things to mean, and I'm like, well, here's a few options you thought of that, and you end up with this like natural back and forth, so we're weaving a story. Like trying to take cues from other DMs was cool. I already knew I was not going to be those DMs without even watching. I like to fill the shoes of Matt Mercer, not only him being good at being a DM, but like their whole group of players were all like voice actors and stuff.
Yeah.
So like they're
voice acting is not just talking and saying lines.
Yeah.
Like you have to do inflection, emotion.
Yeah.
You have a certain amount of acting. It's called voice acting that
and
goes into it.
And the improvisation. So like setting expectations, which was 100%. I feel like the expectations for Star Wars were met properly because we knew what we were getting into.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest issue was like weighing everything that I was dealing with and also having 4 or 5 people who I perceive their overall happiness being associated with what it is that I bring to the table. And that is stressful. So when stuff went down with one of our players and they got upset with me over a decision I made for their safety in real life, that was the final straw of like, I'm not treating you like a child, but I don't think you realize for the last like 7 months or whatever, how much has gone into me trying to make sure you and everyone else is happy. And now you're mad that like, I said a thing where you thought that I treated you like a child. Like I was worried about your safety, not just your happiness, you being alive.
And this is going to go into like perception of the way that you've received information.
Yeah.
Okay. Because this is going into like not being able to the internet and text messaging cannot relay nuance into what somebody is saying. Like, so yes, that person was a little like having a conversation with that person after the fact. Yes, that person was a little frustrated about it at the time, but it was not taking away their enjoyment of the campaign. It was just something that had upset them in the moment. So, but you perceived that as like overall at the time you had perceived that as overall enjoyment of the campaign was going down from whatever, and we didn't know how much work you were putting in on the back end. Like there was a lack of knowledge on our part. So, I mean, we were all kind of operating on a lack of knowledge together, and it just mixed and made a bad environment, and it ended up imploding that a little bit. Which, like all of us that are in the Star Wars campaign, it's not like we can't talk to each other now. I got a thing that I'm supposed to be sending to one of the people now. Anyway, like one of my woodworking projects that I do. So when they will definitely have had that by the time this comes out. I can go ahead and say I made a cutting board for somebody, and it's going to be sent out to them soon. I make cutting boards.
The big stress creator from that whole situation for me was that so like during the campaign, trying to make sure everyone's happy, or you attempt to. Not everyone's going to be happy all the time, so you can't just give things to them, but to try and make sure you give all the opportunities for maximum enjoyment. So we had issues with like Ben, for example, and then I always made sure to get out in front and be like, hey, this thing happened. I could have done better as a DM. Can I do X, Y, and Z to rectify this issue? And are we good? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, cool, that's good, because like I can identify when I've messed something up. The issue with that situation was that I thought everything from that session was fine, and everyone was on board with the decisions that were made for player safety. AKA somebody was Discord calling into the game while they were driving, and I was okay with them listening but not participating. That's what we're talking about with player safety. I did not want them to get in a wreck. And then to find out after the fact that there was a problem brings into question, for me, as Daff a player, I think you're having a good time. All of your actions indicate you're having a good time. All of our interactions with this particular example we're giving, I thought this person also was having a good time. Then to find out that they're upset and they weren't, and everything that I had been put on the table, that all their responses, even when they were taking pit stops and talking to us, I thought that everything was hunky-dory. Then that makes me feel like, okay, well, this is one example. Well, now I question every time we play, like, the perception of I'm not reading the room well, and that's stressful, and that, like, I thought everyone was happy at one point, and then clearly they might not be, and I don't know, and that stress, I couldn't.
Well, I think that's what we were talking about, like, or kind of something that goes into what you were saying with, like, that mental spiral of thinking that you're not good enough because you're attaching numbers to it. I've kind of noticed this, like, being friends with you since, because this was in 2018 when I first seen you on the stream. Like, you have, like, when you go off the deep end on a mental spiral, you go off on a deep end. And, like, for a while, up until, like, last year, when it took me to acknowledge that, like, that can happen to people when they go down, like, even when you're dealing with, like, your own depression and stuff like that kind of stuff, like, I had a hard time acknowledging my own depression from things. So, and, like, I found myself getting stuck in a like, really dark place for some stuff. And for a while, I could never understand how people would get to that dark place and want to stay in it, and then I found myself in it. Yeah,
sometimes not even want to stay in it. You just can't get out.
It would be like that for. So it would happen. I would see it in me, and like everybody has their own things that tick and trigger it or whatever, and I would see it going. Like I would see my own mental health going down, where I would go into like my brain would go into those very, very, very dark places, and I'm like, okay. I would have that for like, I would just be sad for 2 or 3 days, and like nothing would change it, nothing would do nothing, like, and I could not explain it. My emotions were going over crazy, like, so like I would just be sad, like, or like every little thing would irritate me for those 2 days, and then for 3 to 4 days after that, I would feel absolutely nothing. I would feel like I am on autopilot for, like, I would feel no emotion whatsoever for anything, like no drive to do anything. It's like my tank had run low. It's like empty.
Textbook depression, 100%.
Yeah, like, and I like that's how I was feeling, and it was like I couldn't before. I could not understand until I was in, and then it took me realizing like I need to get some help for this, and I did. For a while I was against like using medication for certain things, like, because I didn't want to get on what some people refer to as like the VA cocktail, and ended up having it get worse, and then the VA, because the VA have their own complaints about how they handle things with veterans, as far as like medicine and stuff like that. So it took me a while to acknowledge that I needed when it had gotten bad a couple times, and I was like, I need to stop. I need to do something about myself. So I finally, I have a medication that I take. It helps me. It's been working great. If something happens, my doctor is, I got a doctor that I talk to. My wife has helped me out a lot with some of that stuff. And even her and my son, like, there are times where, like, he would, like, the year before that I realized I was going, like, there was a lot of stuff that happened in my life that was, like, just back to back, beating me down, and it was making other stuff worse, like, other issues that I had with, like, my mood, my anger, my frustration, my stress, all that stuff was just getting out of control. But, like, going back to my original point, like, I noticed that, like, you have a cycle where you go on, like, a deep end, and then I feel like I would have, like, I felt obligated to just check on you, being your friend. I would check on you. Like, I just need to know that you're alive and okay. Like, you're going to have this thing. You're going to be able to work through it. You're going to work through it however you work through it. So when the Star Wars thing happened, like, I didn't give a like, you didn't talk to us for like a day, and I was actually getting pissed off. I'm like, dude, like, to the point where, like, I never bothered with Jessica or nothing like that, but like, I found her on Instagram. I was like, yo, I don't care what the hell is going on. I don't care that Justin left the campaign. Tell me he's all right. I need to know that he is okay, and he's not like going
do something stupid.
Because now, like, after knowing you for like it's been 6-7 years at this point, I consider you a good friend. So, and I care about my friends. Like, I care about people in general. So, I didn't want you to be in a spot that you couldn't get yourself out of. Because, like, when that happened on Twitch, like, you got really down on yourself, and I feel like it was an unnecessary thing for you to be as down on yourself. Like, I can understand why you got that way, and why you attach that value to those things, but you weren't. And when you're in that spot, for a while, I couldn't see how, at the time when it happened the first time with Twitch, I couldn't see how, like, dude, like, you're fucking good at painting. You're good at trying to be a good human being. Like, how are you viewing yourself like this? And then, like, it happened to me, like, last year was when I really acknowledged it. I'm like, oh, I get it. You know? So when the Star Wars campaign thing happened, I was like, whatever he needs to do to work through it, I just want to know my friend's okay.
I think there's a couple things where you can't acknowledge you're good at something or whatnot. I think that for me, the perception of that, and this, I'm not a very not a particularly confident person, but the issue that I have is, like, sometimes I'm like, I did a good job on that, and it's hard to accept, to tell myself, like, you painted this thing good. It's really easy to look at all the faults, right? But the issue that I have, if I start to be like, yo, you're good at this, is the slippery slope between confidence and narcissism. And if you get to that point, how does that impact others? Like, are you not perceived as being humble? Because I'm very humble. Because, like, I think I do paint pretty good. But is my delivery of saying that to someone, then being like, yeah, but that guy's better? Well, yeah, but, like, of course, there's always someone better. But was my delivery making me saying, yeah, I'm good at painting, making me show some hubris or something, which is why I just choose to be humble, which can make things, it makes it difficult to be confident because you don't want to feel like you're a narcissist. And then I feel like if you end up being a narcissist, so, like, if you fall into that feeling of, like, I'm good at this, I'm the best, well, is that cause stagnation? So then for me, and this is unfortunate, but sometimes the negative fueling of the painting fuels me to grow because I like, you're not the best of this. Keep working, keep trying to get better. But then over time, that creates a negative mental space because now, even if you are getting better, it's still never good enough. And at some point, it's like, well, yeah, this is good. You can continue to improve, but being able to acknowledge that you're good. And the kind of the same thing with, like, the campaign is, like, feeling like.
Well, you talk about how. Point out something. I'm gonna point out something. When you say you like to humble yourself, and because you don't want to go over that slippery slope of confidence and narcissism. At the same token, you can, like, as a person, not just you, Justin, but like people in general, you can begin to humble yourself to the point where you feel like you're just constantly beating yourself down. So you have to have a give and take on your own, like a back and forth in between what you're doing on that. If you want, you can stay humble but still be confident in what you're doing. You can understand that you need improvement in areas, and, like, changing your mentality on how you're going to approach that bit about yourself can help you out a lot. Like, it can help your mental health a lot.
I've got
versus being overly done on both of those.
I've got a video on YouTube. I think it's called "Be Kind to Yourself" or something like that, which is tackling this specific topic because I've got the wizard that I painted for Nova, 2020. Was it 2024? Yeah, that I put in 2024, and I started painting at the end of 2023. But my mental state of mind, I convinced myself to try a different approach. And normally I'm like, this isn't good enough. Work harder, be better, improve. And some of that is the way I was raised with the men that were presented in my life, because it was constant, like, you're not good enough, be better, faster, stronger. But it was that, like, there are some things with masculinity that can be toxic, and that approach to some, especially children, can be a bit difficult. Because, like, I think we're far enough in the video that I can drop the P word. I was told a lot as a kid that I was a pussy. right? And I wasn't strong enough, and I'm weak, and all this. So like you get that mentality.
I probably just wouldn't use it back to back to back to back a bunch in succession.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, even in the video, like the previous ones, I don't curse a lot, but like that's what in this particular example, I'm explaining what I was being called.
You're quoting.
Yes, and then you're told, you're weak, you're not strong enough, you can't do this, blah blah blah, and that starts to build a negative self-image. Which the core of that is to try and make you be strong and not weak and develop. But there's ways to do that that's a bit more constructive. So when I was painting, I still had that voice in my head because that's what was drilled into me when I was younger. So I'm very down on some of this stuff because this one happens to be painting, not a strong masculine thing generally, but like it's still the urge to like be better. You're not good enough. With this wizard in my head, I was like, maybe I should try literally just telling myself like, hey, that's pretty good. Keep going. Or like I messed up on a thing and I was literally having a conversation with myself, which sounds crazy. I'm not crazy, but it sounds crazy. And I'd have a spot where I mess up and I'm waiting and I was like about to go down that like, oh, you fucking suck, get better. And then I was like, nope, just go ahead and stop right there. You messed up. Just redo it and do better. And I was like constantly give myself positive reinforcement of like, okay, that's not what you want it to be. Keep working. You can make it look the way you want it. Yeah. So like instead of telling myself it was bad and like a negative delivery, I was choosing a positive mental like reinforcement in my brain of like, that's okay that that's not the way you want. Can you keep working at it to make it better, or is this the best you can do? If it's the best you can do, move on to something else that you can work on right now. Do better on that one when you feel like your skills have enhanced. And then I got through that bust and I was like, yo, this is good. This is one of the better things that I've ever painted. Mm-hmm. And then so I ended up doing that YouTube video about like being kind to yourself because the positive reinforcement really encouraged you to keep going because there's only so much negativity your brain can take. And the older you get, like you're creating these mental pathways.
You had to retrain yourself in your thought process through repetition to be able to do, because you had to
counteract. And it's still hard.
Yeah. You had to but you had to counteract the way that you were like thinking about that. And like anybody can do that. Yeah. Anybody in here, like you just have to dedicate yourself to being able to do it. And being able, acknowledgement of a problem is the first step to fixing a problem in anything that you do. And if you feel like your mental state is going to be going through these kind of things, you can once you acknowledge the problem, you have to be able to continuously acknowledge the problem when it's coming up. So if you, like you were saying, all right, I acknowledge that I may have made a mistake, but I also acknowledge that I'm not about to go down this rabbit hole of like, and through repetition, it's going to become more natural for you to go to that thought process, the better thought process, because I'm now going through the repetitions. It's like muscle work. Like I'm going through the repetitions and it's making it easier for me. Like if I'm weightlifting, the repetitions of me lifting these weights is one, it's hard when you first start it, but eventually I'm getting stronger. Mentally, you can do the same thing.
Yeah. Yep. So like trying to like trying different stuff, and it's once you've built bad habits, it can be hard to break them. But being open-minded to trying new stuff, which that's a maturity thing too, and then just taking some agency over how you feel. And like so, Justin was talking about, or Daff's talking about mental health stuff, trying some medications and stuff. Yeah. I tried that for a while. And the meds weren't particularly working for me. And then I found out that the thing that was causing the mental issues was not me. It was a person, and that person was cut out of my life, and my mental health completely changed. So taking a little bit of agency and being like, what?
Having been your friend through both of those things, like, your mental health on that aspect is a lot different than.
Yep. But like, it can be hard to take the reins, but then it's like, well, maybe I can try a thing. Have the confidence to just try. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel like the meds are working, but I don't want to go try their meds. Is there something else that I might be able to try that can help my mental state of mind?
You run with a different version of the VA cocktail.
Yeah. I mean, and it wasn't even that bad. It was just that the doctor immediately wanted to start throwing even more potent stuff at me. And I was like, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to try a different approach and see. And like, talking to your doctor is the best thing to do. And hopefully have one that you respect. Because I'm not a doctor, so don't take my advice on everything. But trying to find different things that you can do to take a little bit of agency over your life. And one of mine was like trying to treat myself nicer. Because if I went to a psychiatrist and was literally sitting there laying on the couch talking to a shrink, like they might have stern things to say or hard things to hear because I need to hear them. But like they're there to see me succeed. Why is my brain being so negative and not my friend? So it's like, well, if anyone in my life is going to be my first best friend, it should be me. I care about myself. Start acting like it.
I like
right?
me some me.
Yeah, I like being alive. And I literally started talking to myself. I'm like, if a friend of mine came to me and was having the same experiences I'm currently having, would I say to them what I'm saying to myself? And then I was like, no, I would not. That person wouldn't be my friend if I did that, and I wouldn't be helping them. And then I was like, well, why are you saying this to yourself? And I was like, you got a point, Justin. Like, you aren't wrong. I can't argue your logic, and I am you, which makes me sound like a crazy person. But, like, you have to be willing to try and explore yourself, which is going to be a lifelong pursuit, and this is just a place where I've got. And it's not an easy thing. But art, for me, was supposed to be a form of expression and release. And because I tried so hard to monetize it, even today, still doing that, you start sapping some of the benefits of the mental health aspect of like just pouring everything into something, and you lose that. So you're trying.
You
for
lose
me,
that
I'm kind
enjoyment out of it.
Yeah. So for me, I'm constantly trying to find it. And then one of the areas that like the art has helped. This is a different thing. 'Cause this is less mental talking to yourself and more just pouring stuff out. So I painted. You saw the chick who's crying bust, the bite the bullet one. The one
Oh
with the
yeah,
vest.
yeah. I love that.
Yep.
I love
So-
that model, that bust. I love the way you painted it. It was like, if I could buy that from you, I would.
So and I got offered.
A substantial.
Yeah, I'll mention the number. I got offered $900 for that bust, and I said no. I got offered, it was either $1,200 or $1,400 for the wizard. Those are my Instagram guys, and I said no. And I had a long conversation with Austin about it. That is a not insignificant amount of money. But then I was like, what is my art valued to me? What does it mean? And it's not just the money. Like, what does it actually mean? And then I said no because and there's some pieces, if they'd offer me money for them in my collection for like Battletech, there's one that I didn't sell to them, the company. But if there was other stuff I had, I would have, because they didn't mean the same stuff. But these busts in particular, these are like a journal, a 3D journal. And when I look at them, I know what I was going through. So you've seen the chick bust I was talking about, and there was one more before that. Both of those represent times in my life where I was going through struggles in like a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. So when I pick this is going to be super telling on the channel here. When I pick a canvas I want to paint on, it needs to mean something. So like the wizard meant something at the time. It called to me, and maybe it was because I needed a refresher, a mental health boost, a confidence thing, and like a sage, if you will. This is the wizard guy. They represent knowledge and strength and wisdom and all that shit. And then I paint one, and that's kind of the mental headspace I was putting myself in. I paint the bite the bullet one where she's like holding the rifle and she's crying. That model resonated with me for a lot of things, but that was something I was working on when I was going through the dark time in that relationship. Yeah. And I needed somewhere to pour something onto a canvas, and that one was it. So when I look at it, it doesn't put me in a bad space, but it reminds me that like this is what you felt, and you could try and exercise that demon and put it on canvas, and it's a reminder of what you can do. And then the one before that with the pink hair, or blue hair, sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah, the one with the Watchmen pin.
Yeah, yep, looks like Jinx from League of Legends. Same thing at a different time in that relationship, and like this is probably where I should start seeing the signs, and I didn't. Things were a struggle, and then I have this piece that I'm able to work on, and she represented more, again, telling and weird, feeling alienated in a relationship, right? And you're not getting any, I don't say affection in like a sexual way, it's weird to bring this up on a podcast, but like you're not getting any kind of reassurance or connection with the person that you've been spending a lot of time with.
Yeah, your significant other.
Yeah, and it's like I've spent a long time with you, and like now I feel like, well, you don't want me around. It's a struggle. So this particular piece was a way to take like all of what I was feeling and like feel like I was having like a cathartic release. Like I'm painting this model. It's like here's this bust and this feminine thing I'm able to spend some time creating and crafting because that aspect of my life is lacking. Like if that sounds weird, but like
is that not where like a lot of like from that aspect of like a lot of great art comes from the ability to put them for the artist to put their emotions into what they're painting? Yeah,
that's kind of the point I was getting at. I think that is true. So I'll give you guys another example that aren't busts, and I think I've talked about this one on the channel. So we'll rewind the clock back further. Those were busts that I work on, and I don't work on them often. It's usually something very specific, which is probably because there's a buildup of emotion in my life, and then I need to put it on something. I was going through a really negative time. This was probably more around the Twitch days when things were really struggling me. And I didn't feel particularly like confident, good about myself, whatever. I started a new Warhammer army. And there were various reasons why I liked the Iron Warriors from the lore.
Oh, yeah, I remember you doing the Iron Warrior stuff.
But the reason that I picked that army, I've traditionally played good guys in armies. I needed to work on a new project. I needed to work on a project that represented, and I picked Iron Warriors because there was something about them in the lore where they weren't exactly bad all of the time. There was almost a schism with them, with the good ones being killed at one point. But the idea that like this army that's bad might have had good elements, and we aren't exactly sure, similar to kind of Dark Angels, but like these were bad. So ground up, I was able to pour some emotions into this army, but the exercising demon part of it was less the painting. It was the knowing that like, I don't feel good right now, and I need a way to exercise it. I'm going to paint this bad guy army, and in the lore, the bad guys fucking lose. I'm going to go play this game, and I can go balls to wall with these guys, and win or lose, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter because the bad guys are supposed to lose. So if I sit down to play a game with you, with my Iron Warriors, if I win, cool. Like, it feels good because I won, but if I lose, they're doing their job. There has to be a bad guy. So if you want to watch Lord of the Rings, the orcs will lose. That's what's going to happen. They have a moment. They might win a battle, but they will lose at some point, right? What are you looking at?
Is that my call?
No.
Oh.
Tap yours. Is it lit up for you?
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know why the thing on the screen got me weird. Sorry, squirrel.
Yeah, I thought someone was walking in. It's like we're about to get got. But long story short,
Are we?
I hope not. Oh, right. Yeah. So long story short, in tabletop games or in video games, someone's got to play the bad guy. So like I grew up playing PS2. I played SOCOM online. Everyone wants to be the Navy SEALs because they win. Or I would say they win, but like in the real world, you want to be the good guys. No one wants to be the bad guys, and the opposing force is the terrorists. But when you're on the terrorist side on there, you got to play, and it's like, sure, you want to win. When you lose, like, well, the terrorists lost. So for 40K, I built that army, knowing that like if I win a game, cool, I won. If I lose a game, this army was still fulfilling a story duty in that they are designed to lose, and that was a kind of sad way to exercise a demon. But I needed to get those thoughts out and be like, you're the punching bag. That's what these guys are. That's exactly what they meant to be.
Do you think that it would be like something you could do if you see a bust that like we were looking at your box of busts.
I got a tub full of busts I've been buying over the years.
If you see one that you like and you feel like when you get it, do you think it would help you to have like grab a sticky note, write down the emotions that you were going through at that time when you found the interest in that model, and then like this might be something that I do. I don't know if this would help you, but like take that sticky note, put it on the box, because if you're gonna paint it at a different time, you can remind yourself of the emotion that was going through that. Just looking at the sticky note when you go to pull it out and be like, oh, I want to paint something that is like, I found this bust. It's very comical. The bust is very comical. Like I have a thing that I need to go and control my own amount of comical stuff. I'm being too childish and stuff like that. So get a comical bust of something funny that's going on with it, and you paint it with this amount of motion. So you find a color palette that matches those emotions, and then you apply that color palette in a comical way to the comical bust, and you can be reminded that like, I did whatever. Like, I don't know. I think that might be a cool thing. Like,
so with my bust selection for purchase, it is usually something at a core artistic level immediately that makes me want to buy it first. So I see it, it looks really cool, and I perceive there could be a reason I want to paint it. I don't know what that reason is yet. So that the bust we talked about with the chick with the rifle and the crying, the one that you were talking about buying, when I bought that one, I wanted to paint it. I didn't feel like I was going to be good enough to paint it, but I wasn't sure when I would paint it or exactly why. But I knew I wanted it, so I bought it. My whole box of busts right now is the initial purchase of them had less to do with the emotion, more this is a canvas that at some point when I open this box, when I'm feeling something, I'm going to look and I'm going to be like, that one, right? So like when you were talking about, I don't think it was this segment, it might have been the previous ones with your law enforcement friend or a Marine Corps friend who is you made the wand for, the one with the obsidian.
Oh, the ebony one.
Ebony, sorry.
Oh, I haven't made it yet. I just got the wood.
Okay, so you got the wood.
I did the same thing. I bought the wood, and I'm like, this is cool. It's on sale. Like, it's at a reasonable amount. I can find a use for this one eventually. And it's been sitting on my shelf until a week or two ago, and I've had it for about a year.
Yeah. So like it's like that with me with busts. In this case, that piece of wood is your canvas. The project hasn't come up yet, but you knew you wanted that canvas, and at some point you'll work on it. So when I go to work on a bust, like I wasn't sure what I was going to work on for Nova this year, and for some reason I've got this model. It's and I might actually try and paint too if I can make the time, because she's kind of less a bust. I'll show you when we get back to the house.
Is it the one you sent me the other day?
Yeah, the witch.
Yeah,
who's sitting on the
pumpkin.
Yeah. Oh no, she's sitting. I don't know if I sent you the pumpkin. There is one with the pumpkin, but this one's sitting on like the ethereal like fox or wolf thing.
Yeah, that.
So that one, just something about it, I was like, you know what, I want to work on that. I don't know why, and it just called to me. There's nothing particular. It's like I've had it, and it's just in the box, and it's calling to me. But she's more of a actual figure because it's her whole body, and so I might paint her and enter her as more of like a 54 mil figure or something like that, and I might actually paint a bust that's like someone's torso. And there's a variety. There's busts I haven't bought yet that are on my list. I just didn't want to spend $70 on them right now.
Yeah.
But there's one dude who's like cyberpunk, and he's got like shaved military head, and he's got like this cool like dagger or like K-bar across his chest with like a sci-fi chest rig on it. He looks so sick. He looks like he would be like, maybe in like my headcanon, maybe that's the guy who died that made that chick cry. Like he looks like he would be in the same universe. Okay. So it's like, he looks super cool. I just hadn't bought it yet. I don't know why I paint it, but like I see stuff like that and I bookmark it, and it's like, at some point I'm going to throw the money and then I'll feel it, you know? Mm-hmm. The downside of that is I currently have more busts than I would probably ever paint. like that's just like doing the math on how fast I paint them, and I look at that bin, I'm gonna be like, I will be about 80 years old, and like at that point I'm not painting anymore.
Can't get the details.
Yeah, at this point I probably need to get a little visor, and I've noticed that too as I've aged. My eyes are having a harder time seeing stuff on the minis. So, but yeah.
Oh, we got it in another long tangent of
yeah. Well, it's all interconnected because it's all our hobbies and mental health stuff, which is the focus of my channel anyways, to like give people a place to feel comfortable and know that there are people who probably feel similar to you and you might not even know it.
You're not necessarily alone in your struggles. Yep. Your struggles are your struggles, but you're not alone in your circumstances for your struggles are your circumstances. Yep. But you're not alone in the fact that somebody else is struggling similarly.
Yeah, like people struggle too. Yeah, and you may not even realize that they do.
And having a good help and support system is the one. And if you wanting this to be some form of a help and support system for people to be able to come, or for people to understand that just, you know, I'm not necessarily alone. Those guys are doing okay. They're doing good. Yep. They're getting better.
Yep. And
I can get better.
Like the previous videos where I talk about learning about people, hearing my approach to painting, the busts, what goes into it, the emotion, how I try to exercise demons. Like, if you get anything from these videos that you've learned from someone who has a different approach, like maybe that's one of them. Maybe you're like, geez, this dude, it ain't just painting, it's something else. Like, start thinking.
It means more to you.
Yeah. And maybe some projects mean more. Some I'm just like, I'm just going to finish. I don't care. I don't care about it. But some of them I do. And the ones I do, I lose myself in that piece. I will be in there and I go crazy. And sometimes I have like hardcore moments. And Jessica had heard me talking about one the other day. I had gone back and forth between projects, and I really struggle if I've done an effect and can't replicate it again because I can't remember. And I was struggling to get this blend of white, because it's like white and like a blue-gray, and I could not get those blends. And I was like, yo, I have a whole box of minis, which like half of them all have white done this way. Why can't I do it? And I got into that negative mindset. I got so mad, like I'm not proud of this, but I got so mad, I took the handful of paintbrushes I've been working on, and I fucking smashed them into my wet palette and broke them and slung paint everywhere. And then I went to bed. Yep, I was pissed.
What?
I was pissed. I had spent about like 3 hours of my painting session on like one armor panel and could not get that blend right, and I lost it. I was so mad because I'm like, yo, I have done this scores of times. Why can't I do it right now? And I got mad. And that's just how it manifested. And I was telling Jessica, she's like, I wish I could help. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm complaining. I just needed to vent. And then the next night, and so this is the other issue too, and this is the problem with art for me, is that finding the time to do it, there's only so many hours, right? So I get a couple of nights a week for 2 to 3 hours a night to paint. And then if I can't achieve what I want in that time, it's frustrating, especially if I feel like I wasted the time, I'm like, I just spent 3 hours and I got nothing done. But then I come back the next night and I sat down, I was like, I'm gonna fucking figure that out. And then I sat down, and in the first 20 minutes I did it. And then I was like, And what it was I was trying too hard to be fancy with blending the transition of colors, and I was doing like, let's say it's ABC or light, medium, dark, and I put those down. I was trying to feather the blends between them, and it was getting too subtle that the gradient the contrast wasn't high enough. So when I went back, I put white, I put that dark gray blue, blended those into each other, and then it went from gray blue to kind of in the middle to white, and then I was like, I had done one thing wrong. That was it. Probably bug or something, or bird.
Oh, is there another bird stuck back there?
This place is full of birds, man. Full of birds. But like, everyone manifests in a certain way, and the problem with art for me, and I talk about this with Austin all the time, is that like, if I only had to work, let's say 25 hours a week, but in that 25 hours I made enough money to live, right? I don't want to say comfortably, like my bills are paid, I'm okay, all right. What would I do with the other 15 hours, right? And it's a mental exercise because he was like, well, some people would probably choose to just work that and get the extra money since 25 was enough. And I was like, that's fair. There's probably plenty of times where like I would take that extra 15 hours and just work anyway and have the extra money in the coffers, because why not? Save your money, retirement, toys, whatever it is you want. But knowing that you didn't have to, and be like, you know what? I got some other things I want to work on. I want to work on me. I want to write books. I want to develop, the RPG stuff we're doing. I want to paint. I want to do anything else other than just the daily grind.
Yeah.
You have that opportunity, and that's an interesting thought experiment. What society would do if they had the free time to explore, expression. But the same thing holds true if I work 40 hours a week, which I do, and then I want to take a day off. I have vacation time, and then I choose not to. Because I need to save it. What if I get sick? Whatever. Well, then like that day could be for me and used, but then I choose the work over the time. And that's the same thing of like, if I had the option of, in that last 15, what would I do? I might still choose to work, because then that gives me more security long term. And now I've been conditioned to choose the monetary intake over expression, or learning. And there's a quote that I gave Austin once when I was joking. It was talking about like Roman or Greek times, or whatever, philosophers. And I was like, Austin, there was a time that people wore togas and thought shit. And it was like, stay funded. And it's like, it was important to them that they had people. You
should put that on a shirt. Like, put that on a shirt and
funny.
sell it on here. Like, just.
Yeah, there was a time people wore togas and thought shit. And
like, just wear togas and think shit.
Yeah. And
that has nothing to do with the armor, the mech, or nothing like that. So it would be, God, that's funny.
But the point of me making the comment to him was that like there was a time where philosophical exploration was important to the government and the powers that be. They wanted them asking these questions and doing stuff, and those people were given the opportunity to do so. Now, how do you choose that? How do you give someone an opportunity to go explore art? That's a completely different question. But in a thought experiment...
You get them to duct tape a banana to a wall and have somebody pay millions of dollars to come watch it.
Yeah. But it's like, if you as a person were given that time, think just as a thought experiment, what would you do with it? Like, and that's an interesting thing to think about. Like, would you actually pursue the arts, or would you choose just making more money? And if it is just making more money, why is that? Is that because you aren't interested in, or even in arts, you want to go pick up a new hobby, you want to get in the gym, you want to do something else? There's plenty of shit that I'm interested, like learning music. I would love to get to a point where I could read sheet music and play an instrument.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Time.
I just don't. Sorry, I had a nose.
You're good.
My sinuses have been acting up because the weather switching here.
Yep.
So my sinuses are a little. Yeah, I mean, what would I do with that extra time? Like, that's a good question. Like,
so for you, I think the thing that would be interesting, and this is because you have a different perspective, what if in 25 hours a week you made the same amount of money weekly that you currently do, but at 25, so you say 15 hours, or make math easy. Let's say you worked 24 hours a week, so you had 16, so you only worked 3 8-hour shifts, and in 3 shifts you made what you make in a week at 3 shifts.
Let me tell you what my first answer would be.
Is that anything to do with spending time with your kid?
Is exactly what.
That's exactly what I thought you would say. Because like that you have to trade that.
Spend the time. Yeah, like we were talking about this last night, and like I love being a dad. It took me and my wife 10 years of being married before we had our child. So me and her got a lot of time with. Like we dated in high school for a little while, broke up, and then got back together later on. Not long after I got in the Marine Corps, and like we had lived together a little bit before like doing that, or before getting married and stuff like. Because my parents had helped her mom when they were moving and stuff like that a couple times, and so we had time for us to be a couple, like a long time for us to be a couple. But like, I love being a dad. Yeah. Like, I was always like helping out my siblings when I growing up, and like being a dad and being able to like, I thought I wanted a daughter when we found out that she was pregnant, and now that like I see the way like teenagers are at school, I'm like, and like some of my guy friends that like at school that have daughters, like they tell me about some of the stuff that's going on. I'm like, oh, I would be a very angry person all the time if I had a daughter. But like, I love having my son because my son he's freaking smart. He is like you've met Tristan like a couple times. He is smart. He is like very strong-willed, but he's a good kid.
Yeah.
And I would love to find a way to be able to spend more time with him while doing stuff that I enjoy as a hobby, so he could, so that way my son could see me enjoying life, like, and enjoying these other things, so that way he knows that it's okay to enjoy those things.
Yeah, I suspected it would be spending more time with your kid, but right now you're having to trade your time for money to provide for your family, which is what you got to do. But if you did not have to trade as much time, you could spend more of that time with them.
Yeah.
And I suspected you would just be like, yo,
with my wife and son.
Yeah, me and kiddo here, we're gonna go do some stuff today. Like I have more time. 'Cause you're talking about you spend 3 hours a night or something with them, but like, you're also, some of what you do may not be exactly what you want to do because you've worked all day, you're drained. He's been doing what he's doing all day. Sometimes being like, you know what, today, like, we ain't got that same thing. We could do different stuff.
So I make it a point that every 2 or 3 weeks, me and him go and we go get our haircuts.
Yeah.
And for that time, like we get up, like, and he's up at 7:30 every day, no matter what. Like school days, we get up at 6:30. And sometimes he's running a little slow because he's 5 and he don't want to get up in the mornings. But every 2 or 3 weeks, we go get a haircut, and that is like his. Amanda doesn't mess with that at all. She's like, that is y'all's time to be together. Yeah. Like whether it's hunting season or not, like y'all go hunting together. I don't go hunting with y'all, but that is your time to do stuff with your son.
Yep.
That is a very special thing for y'all, and we go get haircuts. We go to the card store, which is right next door. And sometimes they have toys and stuff in there that he likes, and he'll pick out something, or he'll ask if he can have something. He'll ask about cards, or sometimes we go in there, he just wants a snack. And then we go get lunch a little bit later on, and we used to go to Firehouse, but now we've kind of been going to different places.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just that is a thing that I make sure I take time for my son to have, like just me and him time.
Yeah.
Because like he needs that. And if other times where like I'll ask him what does he want to do today? Like we're not, but I'll give him some kind of boundaries. Like Tristan, we're not going to sit and watch TV all day.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Like tell me what you want to do. Like, do you want to go practice football? Do you want to go throw your football for a while?
Yeah.
No, I'm not good at it. Well, Bubby, like you're not going to be good at it. You're not going to be good at anything the first time you do it. Yeah. You might have a little bit of natural skill, but you're going to learn to get better, and you're going to practice. And I've like sitting down with him and like playing flag football is one thing that like he kind of uncoordinated and a little goofy, but sitting down with him and like showing him that he can actually improve in playing flag football and catching a ball. Yeah. Kid hasn't made a touchdown yet, but he's improved in. And I didn't play sports in school, so I don't know how to teach somebody that kind of stuff. Like I wasn't taught that, so I don't know how to teach him that. But I'm learning as a dad, like how to be able to teach him that he can get better, like he can improve. Yeah. So that way, and like now recently, I've noticed with him, he's having he's saying a lot of things where like I'm teaching him how to build his confidence in himself because I'm not good enough. I don't want to do. Tristan, let me tell you something, son.
Yeah.
And we're gonna sit down and we're gonna have a talk, and it's usually like at night right before he goes to bed, because ever since he's been a baby, like I'll sing to him.
Yeah.
And he falls asleep to that, and it's been like that since he was literally days old.
Yeah.
Like it takes 2 or 3 songs and he's out like a light. And he, like that is another time of the day where I get to spend with him. And sometimes Amanda will go and like tuck him into bed, and he wants his mom to come tuck him in.
Yeah.
Sometimes he wants me to come sing songs. It's just he's growing up and he's getting that stuff. So it is a thing where I get to connect with my son.
Yeah.
And that is a very like meaningful thing to me.
Yeah.
So, because he's going to be here when I'm gone.
Yep. Yep. And like the kind of thought experiment with thinking about if you had the time, the more more time. I forget where I read the quote, but it was talking about like making sure that you don't work so much, because like work will always be there. You always find work, but the people that are around won't. Mm-hmm. So like you can go work and you work overtime, work 2 jobs, work 68 hours a week, whatever. But like being aware that like every hour extra that you're working is an hour you're not doing something with someone else.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why like when Jessica talks to me, you know, like last night she wanted to come over and spend a little time, and she was worried that she was gonna like be bugging me or taking up my time. I was like, I'll make time for you. Like,
yeah.
Like my minis will sit there. They will be there whenever, but you might not always. And like, if I don't make time for you and you're like, well, all he's interested in is his games or his hobbies or whatever.
You're not doing the Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. Like, you have your designated time on our date night.
Yep.
You know, this, that, and the other.
Yeah. Which we do have designated time too, but if she really is like, hey, like,
I really miss you. I want to see you.
Yeah, can we hang out tonight? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. And I told her, I was like, if I really felt like I needed to be working right now, I would still tell you can hang out, but I would be like, I've got some stuff I need to do. You can hang out while I do it, but like I got some stuff I got to do. But like you're never an imposition. Like if you want to be around, like we will make that time.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like knowing that or trying to make sure you're not trading your time for money and missing out on experiences that you can't get back. Yeah. So like same thing with like your kid. If you were like doing and this like for you, it would have probably been the best example would be like if you were still active duty and you were getting deployed for 6 months at a time or a year at a time. That would be awful.
I am so thankful that I am so thankful for the time that me and Amanda had, one, to be able to continue to get to know each other and mature as a couple together, and that my son did not have to go and experience, like, I look at, like, scrolling TikTok, because, spoiler alert, that's going away tomorrow, apparently.
Well, as of filming this, it is. Who knows when it goes live?
This, we'll find out find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
But I scroll TikTok and like these Hope Corps videos come up of like soldiers returning from, and like the ones that get me are the ones where the kids like get surprised by it.
Yeah.
And they're so overtaken with emotion. Like, I don't want my son to have to experience that. Like, I am so glad that my son did not have to experience me not being there for him.
Yeah, and it's like I couldn't imagine like being a new father or something. You get shipped off to another country and like you miss kids' first words and walking, doing stuff, and you're like, you can't. Those don't happen a second time.
That's one of those things where like I know you don't get super religious on the podcast, but like me personally, I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ. Jesus of Nazareth was a man who died he was a man that walked this earth. He died on the cross for our sins. And there's been several times, and the conception and birth of my son was kind of one of those things where in my life I feel like those are times where God was very poignantly pointing to me and saying, hey, it's not on your time, it's on my time, or very poignantly, there's 3 specific instances in my life where I can say some other force outside of this very openly influenced what was going on at the time. Some force influenced that beyond what is here in the material world. But at the same time, like, and part of that might be the fact that like I was able to experience and do all those things and be able to mature as a person to the point where now I can be the father that I want to be to my son without him having to like go through all that other stuff. And I'm very thankful that that set of events now, like hindsight, looking back on it, I'm very thankful that those set of events played out the way that they did.
Yeah.
Like we talk about, like every now and then I'm like, man, I wish I could go back to high school. Like everything was so much simpler then.
Yeah, just being a kid was simpler.
Yeah. But I would miss out on my son.
Yeah. Yeah, if you were to go back and like change things, it changes everything. And it's like if you made a difference in high school and you changed something, like would that put you on a different trajectory, and then like your life changes? And like for some people that's good, but for you it's like, well, what if that meant that I didn't have my kid? So perhaps like
Dude,
the path I
that's
took
like the,
is the path I should have took.
Have you heard about the story about the dude that and like apparently this was like a true thing. Like dude got a brain injury or something like that, or he got hit in the head or something like that, and knocked out and put into a coma for a little while, and he apparently like the guy had lived like 10 years of his life after that moment in his head, and he had like a wife and kids and all this other stuff, and then he woke up like and it was like I think it's called the red lamp thing. So he started like he noticed in his life like he was focusing on this red lamp, and like something just seemed off about it in his life, and like eventually one day he was focusing on this lamp so much that like he woke up from the coma.
Yeah.
After having experienced a full 10 years of his life, and it drove him crazy because he had fallen so in love and been attached
This
to
is some Inception shit.
like dude had lived a life, and now all that's taken away. Like he doesn't have his wife and kids anymore. He doesn't have like, oh dude, I would be fucking wrecked.
Yeah.
Like
That's a different philosophical question.
Yeah.
That's some Matrix or Inception level stuff right there. Yeah. All right, guys. So we have identified that this video is very long, so we're going to put in a little bit of a break here, and we'll have a part 2 of this one. So we're going to put that in here because this video, from what we can tell, is probably about 3 hours long, and hopefully you guys sit through the whole 3, but you're more likely to sit through like an hour, hour and a half. So we're going to stitch this in, and when we come back, it'll be us introducing the new video. Thank you so much for watching and being here with me today. I pour a lot of time and passion into every video, and I genuinely hope it adds something to your hobby experience. If you've enjoyed today's content and want to see more, consider supporting me over on Patreon. Every little bit of support helps fuel what I'm doing here, and it truly makes a difference. Whether it's a few dollars or simply sharing the channel with others, your support means the world to me and allows me to keep doing what I love and hopefully inspiring you along the way. A huge thank you as well to all my sponsors, Monument Hobbies, Fortress Miniatures and Games, Baron of Dice, and Deathor Designs as well. Their backing is vital to the channel, and if you're in the market for top quality paints, miniatures, dice, or terrain, please check out their links below. Not only will you be picking up some great products, but you'll also be supporting this growing community we share together. Thank you so much for watching, and for your time, and for being a part of this journey with me. As I sign off today, let's go ahead and highlight some awesome patrons who are helping fuel this journey we're on together and helping keep things going.